Jayden, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So tell me what I wondered because you, for the last few years, and it's so funny because I'll see old pictures of you, but the last few years, you're growing your hair long, thick. It was like big.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I came to work one day and it was gone. What happened?
Well, the story I stuck with for a while was I would keep my hair
Okay.
until for as long as I was sober,
Okay.
right? And then eventually got to the point where I said, I'll keep it until it bugs me too much and then I'll cut it off. And then I was already kind of feeling that for the past few months, right? But my last straw, I went to Carmel and I went hiking at Garoppolo State Park. And the trails there are kind of narrow. So on part of the trail, I stepped to the side to let this girl and her mom get by me, right? And when I stepped back on the trail, my hair got caught in a branch, and not even like the kind of caught where I could just step out of it really quick, It was, I was there for like 30 seconds trying to unravel this branch from my hair and eventually had to like rip a chunk out. And I was like, yeah, no, that did it for me.
Oh my God.
Yeah, the next week I got it cut. I drove back home and I was like, just done with it.
Yeah. Did you feel like you lost like 10 pounds of hair? 10 pounds?
I did.
Yeah.
The first thing I noticed was when I stepped out of the barber shop, my head was just super cold and it was a good feeling, but I feel like I look pretty good now.
You look good. Well, you look it the other way too, but yeah, you look good. And I love how the initial challenge was as long as I'm going to be sober. And then at some point you're like, I don't need my hair to stay sober.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's funny. One of our graduates from the program came back and they were like, oh, you cut your hair. Did something happen? And I was like, no, don't worry, because he was one of the ones I told as long as I was sober, I would keep my hair.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, let me tell you the story. And then I just.
And that's a much funnier story.
Yeah, no, it is. It is.
And that's the worst. I mean, that's a fear of mine. Like, I can't use those round brushes because it's the same thing. It's happened and I panic and I'm like, oh my God.
No, it was terrible. Like sessions where I'd have to wash my hair took like an hour and it was exhausting,
You sound like one of the women my age that I know that have extensions where it's an ordeal when they wash their hair like once a week or whatever it is. It's an ordeal. I'm like, I love your hair, but I don't know if I'm willing to go through that.
No, it was something that I was proud of, but it was a ton of work. So I'm glad to be done with it.
Awesome. New chapter, new you.
Definitely.
So how long have you been with us now?
I first entered the program as a client in September 2021.
Wow.
Started training December 2021 and then started as a staff member in March of the next year.
Yeah. So you're kind of moving towards veteran staff status.
Yeah. Almost at 3 years now.
Wow. What's been the coolest part of that journey as a staff member?
The coolest part of the journey, I would say, before I came to Elevate, I was very introverted, right? I did not want to have anything to do with anyone else but myself. I'd lock myself up in my room. And the best part about working here is learning to come out of that shell and not even just that, but like enjoying different perspectives, enjoying talking to people, enjoying being able to understand their stories and everything.
Yeah.
And so seeing that side of me for the first time in forever is just mind-boggling to me.
So the introvert part of you, that wasn't always you. Was that a side effect of your addiction?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely it was. In high school, I was a good kid. I didn't smoke, I didn't drink. My first drink was actually the summer after I had graduated.
Wow.
Right. And so going to college was an extremely new and extremely scary experience for me because I went to San Diego State, right? And that is a party school.
Huge party
right?
school.
And so
like up there with Arizona.
Yes, exactly. And so being introduced to that culture was extremely, I don't even know how to describe it.
You probably went from 0 to 100 like that.
Definitely. And it was a cool experience, but then when we got to 2020, the pandemic, that's when the partying stopped and I still wanted to drink. And so like I said, I'd coop myself up in my room trying to keep the party going. And
right, because California schools weren't allowed to be in person. So you were literally doing school from your room at home or wherever that was.
And it was crazy. I mean, in classes, we would have drinking games. We're like on Zoom, if a teacher said something specific that they usually say, everyone takes a shot.
Right.
Or, and that was, wow.
Yeah. Well, and again, I mean, it's interesting hearing you say that about college, because that became the thing just in the world in general. Day drinking, like the big joke is, business on top and, boxers on the bottom. And like you said, everyone's drinking just to get through the days, because it was so unprecedented. Like people didn't know how to cope. So I can only imagine how that was for you in college. What year in college were you?
I was in my 4th year of college.
Dude. Yeah.
So that was an unsettling transition.
Sure.
And
that made me really sad for you right there. Just because my son was in 4th year in high school when it happened, and I saw what he went through.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And so, no, I mean, it landed me here. And that is the most important thing, that I was able to come out of it a better person.
Yeah. How did you know you needed help, or was it your family that is like, you're gonna go get help?
It was my family. That's actually another kind of funny story.
Tell me.
When I was in San Diego, I think this was now moving into my 5th year. I became a super senior because I wasn't able to keep up with the classes, but my 5th year of
and
college.
Super seniors is you're treated like a senior had you'd only gone 4 years, but now you're 5 years.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And so in that 5th year, I ended up getting a DUI on my way to Raising Cane's, which is pretty funny. But I ended up getting
back around to the chicken.
Yeah. I ended up getting a DUI, and my dumbass, sorry, I don't know if I can curse, but
you're fine. Yeah.
I thought I could hide it from my family, the fact that I got a DUI.
Yeah.
But 2 weeks later, when they started getting DUI attorney mail in their mailbox and stuff, they were kind of suspicious, and they were like, "Hey, what's going on?"
Yeah.
And it was my mom and my dad that ended up driving out like in the middle of the night, kind of without warning. And they said, "Hey, like, you need help." And when I spoke with them, that was the first time they had ever heard that I was really going through any sort of addiction, right? Because behind all that, behind the DUI, I had long bouts of depression, anxiety, where I'd be cooped up in my room, not coming out for 3 days on end, a week on end. My roommates in my flat wouldn't see me, and they would come knock on my door. I'd act like I wasn't there. I was just huddled in a corner somewhere drinking Bacardi or something, right?
Yeah.
And when I finally spilled all of that to them, let them in on what was going on with me, they were like, "Okay, you need help." And I think Elevate was one of the first places my mom called. And at first I wasn't on board with it. I was like, "Man, I don't need rehab, like, I don't need all this. I'll just stop cold turkey, whatever. I'll go to meetings."
It's just alcohol.
Right. It's just alcohol.
Yeah.
And, I had never even been to an AA meeting in my life. Recovery was something that was new to me. I didn't even know what rehab was like or what the experience would be like.
Yeah.
And,
well, yeah, you were pretty removed from it. I mean, the fact that you didn't even drink till you got to college, that was not a part of your life or your world or what you saw or anything about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, like I said, this has been one of the best journeys of my life, best evolutions, or, anything I've ever done.
What's so cool about that is you mentioned, and one of the things that we did with Elevate straight out of the gate is we did the VISTA, like third party independent studies. And there's this huge questionnaire they ask in the beginning, and most people that come into Elevate present with depression and anxiety.
Right.
And most of them, it is a side effect of their addiction, because obviously people in addiction are depressed and anxious, and we need drugs and alcohol just to feel normal and all the things. So it's really cool for you to mention that, because that wasn't necessarily what you came here for, but it ended up helping you solve those problems.
Yes, it did. I had no idea about anything about mental health, right? I just knew that something needed to change because something wasn't right. And at first when I started this journey, I thought that depression and anxiety were like the things that caused my addiction, but really it was me feeding into my addiction that caused the depression and anxiety, right? Because coming out of it, I don't feel anxious, I don't feel depressed, or when I do feel those emotional states where I'm feeling kind of down or kind of scared, nervous, right? I know how to deal with them now.
Yeah.
And that doesn't involve drugs or alcohol.
Yeah.
Right. So
was mindfulness big for you?
It was. It
Yeah.
definitely was. Um, when I first started learning about mindfulness, I thought it was, kind of being like a Zen monk, being able to clear your head of
Yeah.
everything that's distracting you or everything that's ailing you, right? And over time, I learned that it wasn't that. It was almost the complete opposite, right? Like learning to become aware of those thoughts, recognize that they're there, and recognize that you can endure them and get through them, right? Without having to do any drastic thing like drink a shot or
Yeah.
smoke a blunt.
One of the hardest things for me is, one of our teachers would say, you're going to have the thoughts, just watch it go by. Imagine it's like on a stream, a leaf going down the river.
Yeah.
And it's like, I couldn't just watch it go by. I had to follow it. And what was it doing? And why was it doing that? And I got to figure it out. And it was just like so hard for me to learn how to just, yes, you have a thought. Cool. Now watch it leave.
Exactly.
Oh, it's so hard.
I know. And I would get so frustrated with myself too,
Yeah.
because it's hard at first when you're making a change in your life, right? Like people tell you, oh, you should do this or it should be done this way, right? And when you don't get it down the first time or you don't get it down the first week into it, you're like, fuck, I'll never get this right, But it really takes that consistency, just keeping at it and keeping an open mind about knowing that you can get through it, knowing that you're not fucked. I don't know.
Yeah, you're not going to backslide. You got to, but you also got to keep taking steps forward, right?
Yes,
because
absolutely.
nothing stays the same. So we're either doing this or we're doing that, but we're never just doing this. And I think that's hard for a lot of people who are like, okay, I'm fixed, and they quit doing the work. And I mean, it might take a while, but they're going to start going down that hill if they don't continue to find ways to keep improving or getting better, that sort of thing.
Yeah. And that was something that I was pretty naive about as well, right? When I had first entered the program, I was initially just doing it for my parents, right? Like, okay, I'll do these 2 months. They'll be happy that I've gone through a program. I'll be fixed, right? I'll be done with it. I'll be recovered, right? And it was at the end of my program when I was just graduating and I decided to stay and train. I had learned, damn, I still have so much work to do.
Yeah.
I'm not done with my journey. Let's see where this takes me.
Yeah.
And, I stuck it out.
Yeah. Well, and you continue to challenge yourself. You and I were just talking about you finished 75 hard for your first time, which was a huge feat because I mean, you've seen a lot of people start and not a lot of people finish.
Yeah.
At least the people we know, because I've tried to bring it into Elevate so many times. And I think Greg and Dana finished.
Yes.
And you were the only other one besides me that's actually finished it all the way through.
Yeah.
And that is the pillar of consistency. That's 75 days of doing the same thing over and over again.
Yes, that was something I definitely needed to do. I've been working here for almost 3 years now.
Yeah.
And, I try to constantly change and grow and evolve. And, I would work out a lot. I'd eat nutritiously and, I'd get to a point where, I felt like I lost enough weight or I felt like I was happy with my body or whatever. And I felt like I almost reached the finish line.
Yeah.
Right. And when I reached that finish line, I pumped the brakes really hard. I said, okay, I'm good. I'm done. Just like kind of at the beginning when I thought, okay, I'm done with these 2 months of the program. I'm good. I'm fixed. I'm recovered.
Yeah.
Right. But what you start to notice is that the finish line gets pushed further and further back. If you don't keep consistent with the work that you're doing, you're going to lose your progress. Right.
Yeah.
And 75 hard was me telling myself, okay, I need to do this. I need to be consistent. I need to be disciplined. If I don't do this, then okay, maybe I'll try again. Right. But it's time. I'm 25 now. I need to get stuff going.
Yeah.
So,
and it's a challenge. I mean, like, that's why I liked it. I'm like, this is a challenge. It's not easy. You can't just like roll, I mean, it could be as hard or as easy as you want it to be, but it's still a challenge to do all those things every day, working out twice a day, that water every day, reading every day, picture every day. Did you notice a difference in your pictures from day 1 to day 75?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I used to hate taking pictures of myself. Those first few weeks were so hard for me. I was like, man, I don't even want to look at these photos.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, if you look at my photo gallery, it's just so many selfies of myself. I don't know what it is. I love the way I look now.
That's
I don't
awesome
know.
though.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't happen just by getting sober. Like
No,
that
for
that
sure.
takes work, that consistency
Mhm.
with your health, your diet, your exercise. Just because you get sober doesn't fix all that stuff.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
think sobriety is the foundation, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people going into recovery or into being sober, right? They think sobriety is the end. You know, once
Yeah.
I'm sober, I'll be fixed. But sobriety is really meant to be the catalyst of change. You know, now
Mm.
that you're sober, now that you're healthy, you can start thinking clear. You can start doing the things you need to do to get your life right, you know? And um, I think when you kind of flip that mentality, instead of seeing sobriety as the end goal and seeing it as the start of real change, that's
Mhm.
when you start to make real change, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, well, and I love that because we're so conditioned and you're younger. So you've
Mhm.
always known social media, like
Mhm.
instant gratification, like that's how you were raised. Back in my day, and I'm gonna sound real old, like we had to fucking earn shit. Like it took forever.
Yeah,
And so we weren't obsessed with that quick fix because
right,
we knew that wasn't really real. But
right.
you guys have been raised in a culture and a society where it is.
Mhm.
So it's harder, I think, for you guys to go, okay, this is gonna not be an overnight sensation. This is gonna
Right.
take some time.
Right. Yeah. I mean, instant gratification is it's kind of sinister, you
It
know? It's
is.
because I want it now, now, now. That was one of the hardest things for me at the beginning of the 75 hard challenge was, damn, I put in all this work today. I burned over 1,000 calories, pushed myself to the limits in the gym today, and I still look like the way I did yesterday, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And it's patience, you know, learning patience and learning to accept the slow growth that comes with any change, you know. That's another big mindset change that, you know, ultimately leads to success. So
Yeah. But how much does it feel good when you finally get to the end?
oh my
Because you
god, it
put in
feels
the
so
work.
good. It
Yeah.
feels so, I mean, like I said, I love taking pictures of myself, and now that I've made it to this point, I don't
Yeah.
want to stop.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I finished the challenge on the 31st of December, and the next day, I mean, yes, I went and got Raising Cane's chicken fingers as a reward for myself.
As you should. You
As
should
I
have, yeah.
should, as I should.
Did it taste as good as it used to?
It tasted better.
Yeah.
But that next day, you know, I was like, damn, what do I do now?
Yeah.
And you know, in the morning I went for a run,
Mhm.
and then I was like, okay, let me drink some water.
Yeah.
And then I was like, damn, I feel like I should do another workout now. And it was funny, the first like 5, 6 days after I'd finished the challenge, I kind of kept up with the framework,
Yeah.
you know, drinking the gallon, you know, reading 10, 20 pages of a book every day, doing 2 workouts. And I was like, okay, I can, you know,
Yeah.
I can slow down. But I found myself keeping up with that routine and that
Good.
regimen long after I've finished the challenge.
Yeah.
So
Well, good news for you. In another 2 weeks, you could start phase one.
phase one.
Yeah, there's the whole Live Hard program. 75 Hard
Oh.
is just the first phase. You get 3 more
Oh no.
phases. But part of the
Uh-huh.
magic in that is you have to take off 30 days in between. So
Mm,
it's almost like you got to have a free for all and then dial it back
yeah.
in. And can you dial it back in? Because as you said, a lot of people, when we get away from that hard discipline, it's like,
Mhm.
this is so much easier. And then we start backsliding, backsliding, backsliding.
Yes.
This says, okay, we're going to let you black side a little. The challenge is, can you get it back on track?
Right, right.
Yeah.
I feel like I could do it.
I know you can do
I
it.
mean,
I
I
know you
haven't
can
heard
do
of that
it.
before. Phase one, phase two,
Yes.
phase
So
three.
the only difference with phase one, it's
Mhm.
30 days, is now you got to add in a cold shower every day.
Oh,
5-minute cold
oh
shower.
God.
No big deal.
Oh
Just a
God.
cold shower.
I tried
I
that
can do it.
before.
You can do it. And I am a baby when it comes to the
I
cold.
oh man. Fuck it. Fuck it. Let's do it. Why not?
Yeah,
Why
you haven't
not?
conquered the last beast. This
Yeah.
is
I mean, I'm
nothing.
not done.
Yeah, yeah. So after your 30 days, then you can do phase one. And then I'll tell you about phase 2 and 3 later.
Okay.
But we'll just work on phase
Okay.
one
Gotcha.
later.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I love that. So with that discipline and your attention to health and fitness, were you always a fit person? Were you always in sports? Was
Oh
that always
no.
a thing?
No,
Oh.
actually, I did play basketball a while in middle school, but in high school I went to this charter school
Mm.
back in Fresno. And there they didn't have any sports programs, right? It was mainly focused on music and science. So I was in Science Olympiad, you know, going out to different states doing different tests and stuff. I was playing in the band, you know, I played tenor saxophone, alto saxophone. And we had like an ultimate frisbee team, but it was intramural, so it was at the school, right? And so I never really thought about being fit, you know, thought about the importance of eating healthy, right? And that kind of transitioned into my college years. You know, I would see all these people go to the gym, and I was like, okay, maybe I could try, but I didn't really care or put that much focus into it. And it was really after I had done the program that I put a lot of attention to that detail.
You CrossFitted during the program, right?
Oh yeah, I CrossFitted during the program.
Yeah. So what was that like? Like not having sports or fitness or working out, and then here's CrossFit.
Yeah, that was, I think for me, because for me, like I mentioned, when I first did the program, it was for other people. I didn't even know at that point if I wanted sobriety for myself yet.
Sure. You were young.
So,
you barely just started drinking.
Exactly, right? And so I think when I got in the CrossFit gym, it was more, okay, once I finish the program, I'm going to come out with the washboard abs and I'm going to show my family and my friends how good I did, right? And I never had that internal motivation for it until I'd say a year later, right? And that kind of translates to my sobriety too, right? After I had finished the program, even though I was training and a staff member, I felt like I was still doing all of this for other people. And when I started putting the focus on myself, you know, finding my internal purpose, finding the reasons why I want to do this for me, I think that's when it started to become a real new chapter in my life. Right. When I started to do it for myself and not for anyone out there.
Yeah. And how much is that a part of your life now, health and fitness?
Oh, I mean, after 75 hard, I mean, it's the epitome of my goals, you know.
Like,
Exactly. I went back home recently, this last weekend, and I was joking with my mom. She's 42 and
she's young.
Yeah, no, my parents had me as teenagers, but I went back because my aunt had a party and I joked with her. I was like, man, all you little friends want to touch up on my muscles, you know? But yeah, no. Mom, sorry if you see this, but
but you should be proud.
I am proud. Yeah.
It's like that doesn't happen like that. It's not genetics. It's not anything. You got to put in the work to get the body you like. Yeah. So they got to be super proud of you. I mean, just seeing the transformation physically, mentally, the career path, the purpose. They've got to, you've got that hair. Oh, was mom wanting that hair?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
She's like, oh my God, I can see your eyes now.
Right.
I can see your beautiful face. All that. She was pretty stoked about that.
No, she was. I think my whole family was.
Yeah.
But the body more.
Yeah.
So, you know?
But you could just cut your hair. You could just grow your hair. That doesn't take like, I don't know. I mean, it takes work. It takes time, but not like building a body does.
No, for sure.
Yeah. So do you challenge them now? Like, come on, mom, let's go running.
Hell yeah. My dad actually, one of the things I wanted to do for so long was walk the Inca Trail in Peru. And it's like this 4-day hike. And so at the beginning of the year,
that's like up the hillside, like super brutal, super narrow.
It's through the Andes Mountains, part of the Amazon rainforest. And it's all at like a super high elevation, like 6,000, 7,000 feet. And I told my dad, hey, we're gonna do this, right? And you know, my dad, he has like the typical dad strength where he can like lift stuff.
Old man strength, hell yeah. Right?
But I was like, if you're gonna do this with me, you better get that shit in shape, man, because he was like, oh, I bought a treadmill. I'll just do like incline treadmill for the next whatever. I'm like, no, let's go work out. I went back home this weekend. I was like, let's work out. Nice. You know.
So you took him to work out?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
How do you do?
Killed him. There's this workout I do where it's like 45 minutes, 3-minute rounds, and you do 15 burpees every 3 minutes. So it's around like 225 burpees. He couldn't keep up.
Well, see, and you're right. That's what he's going to need for that. It's endurance, is breathing at super high altitude, which is hard because you can't breathe.
Exactly.
you got to go do some training like in Tahoe beforehand or something like that.
Yeah, that's why I've been doing all those hikes at Garapata down in Carmel.
Oh.
You know, it landed me with a haircut, but
Yeah.
you know,
Hey, that was a
it
blessing.
was worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of those like happy accidents, I like to say,
Yeah.
because look at you, you're like a whole new man now.
Hell yeah.
Ready to roll. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let me ask you,
Mhm.
what is the favorite part of your job? Because you work with clients to
Yes.
some degree,
Yes.
and what is your favorite part about what you do? And you can tell us what it is that you do.
So at Elevate, I'm the quality management supervisor, right? And so what that entails is looking at different various points of data that clients submit, whether it's through reflection forms that they write at the end of their day, whether it's through surveys that I have them take weekly, whether it's through their group notes, you know, we kind of look at where they were at the beginning of their program and how they transform throughout the program, whether they're getting better with their depression symptoms, anxiety symptoms, whether they're writing better, their vocabulary has expanded, right? And you kind of see them grow through all these different data points, right? And I think it's cool to see them grow that way. But I'd say a year ago, I started as a facilitator in the classroom, you know, being on the counseling side of recovery. And when you're able to see, because I get the pleasure of having the mix, right? I get to see the objective data growth and I get to see them, their faces, their smiles as they grow in the classroom and out in public, and the way they talk to you and the way they, you know, act and do CrossFit, you know? I get to see this whole different side of them by the time they're finished with the program. And being able to see that growth, you know, kind of like how we were talking about with the instant gratification, you know, being able to see it physically and it mentally by the time they finish the program, that's phenomenal.
Hell yeah.
You know, it reminds me of why I do this. So.
Yeah. You got to get some small amount of like joy at graduations when you're seeing those transformations. Cause we see it straight out of the gate. I mean, the fact that we make them get up there and get a certificate after detox.
Right.
Some people are like, this is the first thing I've completed.
Yeah.
You know, they're going to be speaking in front of 50 people or any of that. But to watch that transformation, it's so cool.
Yeah. And I mean, looking back at it from when I was in the program, you know, I spoke about how I was this huge introvert. If you go back and look at my speeches, when I went up for my detox speech, I went up, I said, thank you. And I ran away. You know, I ran back to my seat. But if you look at my speeches from like phase 1, phase 2, at the end of my program, you see me open up so much more. And I just love that so much, seeing people come out of their shells, seeing that there is a light at the end of this. You know, it's not all for nothing. It's for this new person, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the beauty of it, because we have the people further on in the program speak first, but it's if them opening up and being vulnerable and sharing, it goes down the line where the newer people sooner open up and share, and then the healing can happen. And there is some beauty in you sharing a part of you that can resonate with others that maybe they wouldn't have seen or heard or thought about until they heard you speak it. And then all of a sudden it's like, that's real for them too.
Yeah. I mean, growth, especially at Elevate, is infectious, you know, contagious. You see all these people doing better, getting better, and you want better for yourself. And that's part of the reason I stayed, because even though I didn't know whether or not I wanted sobriety for myself at that point, staying in that environment and seeing real growth, real change, even in myself as I, you know, challenge myself more and more, that's what eventually flipped the switch for me for, yes, this is what I want for myself. It's what I need for myself and what I want for everyone else, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Well, and how was that transition from you from client to staff? Because some people join staff just to gain a little more sobriety, or I'm not quite sure what I want to do yet in life, or I'm not sure where I'm going in life, but let me do this. Where was that transition for you, or how quickly was it where it was like, actually, I do like doing this and maybe I want to stay doing this?
Yeah, I want to say it was maybe a year after I had been a staff member, right? Another part of my job is I work very closely with the trainees. You know, I supervise the trainees and the curriculum that they do as they become a staff member, right? And for me, I had been doing the job I want to admit, pretty selfishly, right? Because when I came, I was like, okay, if I work here, I'll have a bed, I'll have food, you know, I'll have a gym where I can work out in. I have all this stuff that's provided for me, and that's great, right? And then it'll get my parents off my back.
Exactly. I'll earn my
yeah,
to go back to them
yeah,
and say, okay, now I want to do this. Oh
exactly,
yeah, we see that a
exactly.
lot.
And so at first I was doing it pretty selfishly,
Yeah.
but then a year later, I noticed I was still feeling a lot of the same emotions that I was when I was back in college, you know, cooped up in my room. And I was like, man, like, what is going on? Why am I kind of the same person as I was before the program? Or why am I still feeling these things and not able to deal with them? Right. And it was when I addressed the fact that sobriety wasn't the end goal, you know, kind of like I had mentioned.
Yeah.
When that was just the foundation. And I realized that it was the catalyst for change, like I mentioned. That's when it flipped the switch for me. And I was like, okay, let's see what happens if I do this for myself. Let's see what happens if I forget all of that and just, you know, focus on myself and focus on that growth. And I think that's when I started seeing it all differently.
Yeah. Yeah. And working for Tots, that's gotta be.
Oh, I love working for Tots. Tots is a character, man.
We liken him to what, like Yoda,
Yeah.
or Mr. Miyagi. Like he knows everything, but he communicates it in such a funny way.
Yes.
Which is right in our core value of
Yes.
hardworking and fun. He does it in such a manner that it's just makes it makes serious shit not so serious.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, one thing I love about
Yeah.
Tots is because I mean, kind of like what you see is what you get, but more than that, he is the most consistent, most disciplined person I've ever met. And as much as I like to make fun of him, he is one of the main reasons I decided to do 75 hard. You know, seeing him in the gym every day and seeing him work and read all these books every day. And I'm like, man, like, he's got it figured out, even though he's kind of like a, you know, goofy dude. He's got it figured out.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that he's my supervisor.
Yeah.
You know, I get to work with him every day and discuss different topics regarding the clients, the trainees, and hearing his perspective, someone that's done that journey, gone down that road, you know, has been life-changing for me. It's been life-changing.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny.
And it's really funny.
I love watching you two at staff meeting because you know you have like your overtly like this is a senior junior relationship, but then there's the behind the scenes stories that I'll catch between the two of you, and it just always cracks me up.
No, I mean it's funny. So many people make jokes about like the father son thing. I'm like, oh, shut up, but it's funny being able to banter with like your supervisor like that. It makes the relationship a whole lot more open.
For sure.
You're able to discuss things a lot more freely and with a lot more honesty, you know? So that's something I really do appreciate about having him as my senior.
Yeah. Well, and especially again, this is sort of an era of where you've grown up. I grew up in a tough love, just deal with it. And now the newer generation is, you know, don't say that. You could offend them. You could hurt them. That could come off the wrong way. This could make people feel a certain way. And so it's almost like this like censorship all the time, but it's kind of cool to elevate because I mean, yes, we have our level of professionalism and, you know, you don't cross certain lines with clients or each other. But at the same time, we're also a little bit loose too, where have fun. Like, don't worry about if what you just said was bad or wrong or you're going to upset somebody. Like, because I think all of us with our addiction, we kind of let those walls down a little bit more than your average person.
Yeah. And I think that's something that really makes Elevate special, right? Because you're able to traverse a relationship with the clients that isn't so much like we are friends, but I can be friendly with you. You know, yes, sobriety is something very serious, but you can have fun with it. Right? It's not all just gray, you know. There's life in it. You can bring life to it, you know. And that's really great.
Well, and I like too what we see is they're not white knuckling it, right? Like they're learning how to have fun. They're learning how to integrate into life without a substance, which is new and different. Laughing for the first time without drugs or alcohol, like, and then having those genuine relationships. And for us to just sort of oversee that, you know, nobody's getting hurt or doing anything that's going to hurt the group, but sort of allowing that process to happen too.
Yeah. No, I mean, I definitely felt that when I was in my program because I mean, going back to the introvert thing, you know, a lot of the people that still work at Elevate now remember when I first came down the hill from detox, I would go to the back of the buildings and bring a big book with me and just read and stay away from everybody, right? I didn't talk to people like bantering for maybe the first 2 weeks,
Wow.
right? And one of the people that really changed that is one of my coworkers now, Brandon. He was a trainee when I was a client, and being able to bicker and banter with him and just have fun was something that introduced me into, okay, maybe I can have fun with all these people. Maybe I can just be me and not be afraid to be me around all these people.
Yeah.
And eventually I made some really great connections, made some really great friends that I still talk to this day, you know, and it was the environment of Elevate that supported that. So,
well, that's the number one thing we hear at graduation all the time, right? It's the community. And when the clients are thinking the staff, yes, but then they look and to all the other clients and they're like, it's this community, which is what is the magic of Elevate, which I think is so awesome because like you said, with the pandemic, that's what ruined this world was this forcefulness into isolation and non-community. And this is like the anti to that.
Yeah. Community is that's one thing that's been very important to me. You know, part of the structure I set up for myself after 75 hard, right? I know you follow the framework of doing 2 workouts a day, gallon of water a day, all this other stuff, right? I created my own framework for things, right? Where, you know, I'll do my workouts, I'll still drink water, whatever. But one of the things that became part of my daily routine was making sure I call a friend or family member every day. You know, making sure I keep those connections up because those are what I value. Just because I was able to value that community aspect when I was in the program and even now as a staff member, you know, with my coworkers, with the clients, uplifting the community and being a part of it. It's become really important.
How important is the core value we have positivity in there? Like I don't feel like we see that a lot in other types of programs. Like positivity isn't a thing. You're confronting real stuff and it's crisis and you know, why should you be happy about that? But we're kind of like the opposite of that.
No, yeah. I think positivity is a big aspect in my sobriety at least, right? And I think that the program as well, because when I look at the program, you know, the work that we have clients do there, right? Yes, a lot of it is about learning to live your life without drugs and alcohol. But at its core, I think it's more of a life philosophy, you know, how to be a good person, you know, what you need to do to become a good person and how important just simple kindness is, both to yourself and to the people around you, right? And so when you really get that philosophy and learn to be kind to others and to yourself and be positive rather than focus on all the negative bullshit, right? You really start to see the beauty in yourself and in the world, you know? And so positivity, I mean, love that.
Well, and I think about that because of Brandon, right? He's like our infectious, positive guy. Like we all love being around him because he's happy, he's funny, he makes us smile and laugh. Nothing's ever too serious.
Mr. Hardworking and fun.
Yeah, he is. We're gonna just put his face next to that core value. I love that. And it is part of the community because it becomes infectious where that is sort of the expectation, not just the exception to it.
Right.
And the clients see that as well because you guys model it from the front. So it's easy for them to sort of fall in line. And I also love it because they realize it doesn't have to be serious or you know, it doesn't, every day doesn't have to be a fight. Like you can actually go be a normie in life again. You just overcame an addiction, but now you're like better than ever.
Yeah. And I mean, that's one thing I love, right? Being the example. Right. The way that Brandon was an example to me when I was in the program, the way Tots is an example to me now. You get to be the one to show what a quote unquote good person looks like, what someone who actually values life and values their happiness, values their sobriety, values their families. You know, you get to be the face of that for different people, right? And love that.
Well, and you do a great job leading from the front in all those aspects, from the physical fitness to the taking care of yourself.
Right.
How hard was it for you to learn to love yourself?
Very hard. Very hard. I mean, In those college days, the pandemic days, it was really hard for me to look at myself in the mirror.
Yeah.
You know, I would shut all the lights off. I'd throw on a TV show or movie and just go blank. You know, I used to say to myself, if I could just have a room with a TV and internet access and just unlimited access to food, I would prefer that for my life, right?
Yeah.
Just be in that room until I die, right? And when I actually started to make those changes the year after I had become a staff member and even in the program, right? Um, and I started to look at myself and appreciate what was there in the mirror, learn to say to myself, I love you, learn to embrace the growth and the change and even the ugliness of the world that's going on around me. And learning to love that I can endure that ugliness and come out fine on the other end. I mean, I don't even know what to say about that. Loving yourself is the biggest change you see in your sobriety, I'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's hard because
is.
we're so beaten down by ourselves,
Yeah.
society, family, you know, all the things, limiting beliefs, you name it. It's really hard to learn to love yourself. And you got to earn it.
Right.
You know, it's like with anybody, you got to rebuild that trust within yourself in order to feel the love with yourself.
Exactly. And it's not something that happens in an instant,
Yeah.
right? It's something that happens with work and with adversity, right?
Yeah. Well, I think that's one of the things I tell clients when I talk to them is like, just because you get sober, don't think that the world suddenly magically fixed itself. The world's still really fucked up.
Exactly.
You're just going to be different in it, which is going to be even harder because you're going to be seeing things differently, but you're going to realize that it's still work. There's still adversity. Bad things are still going to happen. Things are going to come your way. It's just how you navigate it now compared to how you used to navigate it.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I constantly, well, not constantly, but I remind the clients often, right, is elevate is kind of like a bubble, right? And what I mean by that is in this place, everyone here is making changes in their life. Everyone here is growing. Outside that bubble, things are still happening. You know, there's a whole world out there and wars and family traumas and all this stuff you have to address after you finish the program, right? And this, I'd say, is just practice. You know, what we do for the 60 days, 90 days, however long it takes someone to do their program. It's all practice for what happens next.
Yeah.
You know, every time someone graduates, I'll tell them, okay, you ready for phase 5? You know, because you only have phase 1 through 4, and it's phase 5 time. And
It's true.
For a lifetime.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because you'll see the people who came for other reasons, like the majority of us. I didn't come to rehab because I wanted to. We came to rehab because we had to, family law, whatever. And so not a lot of times, but sometimes when people are doing it under protest, they make so much gains, but then they're like, okay, this is all good, but I'm just going to use this to go be a better addict or whatever it is. And then they come back to us and then they're like, oh shit, now I get it. Now I'm here for me. And it's a whole, even if it's almost basically the same program, but now you get to look at it through a different lens of going back out and trying it your own way again, and then realizing, holy shit, okay, maybe I don't have all the answers. And that's really humbling for people.
Yes, it is.
And some people don't come back because of it, but I think we make it very easy for them to go, why would I not want to come back to you again? Because this was the safest I ever felt.
Right. And I think that is a very important step in people's recovery. You know, it's hard to come back from relapse.
Yeah.
It's because it's only if you want it for yourself, right? When I talk about the change that I've made, you know, going from that external purpose to an internal purpose, I think when people come back and see, damn, I have a lot of work left to do, they're able to make that change. And maybe it's not the first time around, maybe it's not the second time around, but when they do flip that switch, I mean, you see growth like never before. Right. And you see it plenty of times. And I love to see that change whenever clients come through and they're like, okay, this is it.
Yeah, because they come in all like nervous. Is everybody judging me, or they can think less of me? And then it's just open arms and they're like, oh, why was I so scared about coming back? I forget how, like, what an accepting community this is. And as long as people are there wanting to get better, then we're all the same.
Right. Yeah. And I think for me at least, right? Part of the reason it took so long for me to make that change, the reason it took me a year before I shifted my purpose was because I saw sobriety as kind of like a scar, something that I was ashamed for at first, right?
Yeah.
Like every time I go home, oh, everyone's gonna think I'm the kid that went to rehab, or I'm the one that had an addiction and they're an alcoholic, oh, blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
But when you stop seeing your sobriety as a scar or something that is in front of you, kind of like a veil that people see before they see you, and you see it as something that you're proud of, something you wear on your sleeve confidently and proudly, that's when the real change happens. I think, at least for me, going back to your question of when that mindset change happened, was when I stopped seeing it as an affliction and more as something that I'm proud of.
Yeah,
Right?
something you overcame, like some massive adversity.
Yeah.
With had you not gone down that path, maybe you never would have discovered that side of yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah. What's your favorite part of the program? Where do you see like the biggest change? What do you like hearing the wins or seeing the change from?
The biggest change, my favorite part of the program, I would say, is actually in phase one. In phase one, one of the things you do towards the end of the phase is rebuilding trust.
Yeah.
So you've been in the program for a week, 2 weeks, however long, and you get to the point where, like, okay, it's time to call your family and have a serious talk. It's time to get down to the nitty gritty of what's going on, and start opening up communication with them, right? And so, you get on your phone, you call your mom, you call your sister, you call your brother, whatever, and you say, hey, I'm here, I'm doing this, I'm scared as fuck right now. I'd really like you to be a part of this journey with me. And I think that was something that was really scary for me, because sobriety being something completely new in my life, and I think new in my parents' lives as well, they had no idea what the fuck was going on, right?
Yep.
And so being able to build that bridge, even though it wasn't, fully completed, just starting work on the bridge, right?
Yep.
And eventually taking that all the way to the end of the program, where you do amends and you make amends for all the harm that you've done. If you don't put work into building that bridge up until the amends point, it's going to be hard to keep that open channel of communication, to help others understand what you're going through, and help yourself understand them, where they're coming from.
Yeah.
Right. I see a lot of clients that come through the program and they're like, oh, I hate my parents. They want me to go around and tell everyone that I was in rehab and blah, blah, blah. And like, no, you have to understand where they're coming from. Anytime you have a conversation with a friend, a family member, you should never go into it like it's a battle, like it's something you should win or you could lose, right? It's more of building a better understanding of the person you're talking with, right? And if you go into it with that perspective, the perspective of, okay, we're having this conversation now, let's try to understand each other, let's work on this together. I think that's when you start to value your connections a lot more. You start to value the people in your life and talking with them.
Yeah.
That's definitely when it happened for me.
I love that. Well, and also you start to realize, is it really them? Are they really bad guys? Or did I start to create them being bad because of the stuff I was doing? The light bulb starts going on where like, maybe I'm not the victim. Maybe I have some part in this. But it's so cool because I don't think every program does that. Like the family has to be in on the healing process, or else you're going to do all the work. You're now this person. They don't know the process, and it's not going to work when you get out, because they're still looking at you as this person,
right?
Because they weren't part of the process of coming up there with you.
Yes, exactly. And I think, going back to what I said about the bubble, right? Like, it's not all a bubble, you have to learn to let people into that part of your life. And I think Elevate does a great job, keeping families in touch, building the relationship and confounding on that rather than just focusing on yourself. Because yes, there is a huge part in being selfish in your recovery. But when you learn to only be selfish, you lose another half of you. You lose the half of you that cares about the world and the people around you, right? And I think it's just so great that we build that relationship rather than forget it's even there. you know?
Yeah. Gosh, it is such a process too, because it
Mhm.
doesn't happen overnight. And but coming back to that instant
Yeah.
gratification, it's not like, oh, you went to rehab, you're fixed. Great, we're all good. There's
Yeah.
like a lot of trauma
Yes.
from both sides that
Yeah.
kind of need to be healed. And isn't it cool when you can heal that trauma together
Mhm.
on the same journey together, as opposed to separately where you're trying to bring one or the other side up to speed?
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, that was definitely a huge part for me and my family. Um, I remember, I mean, my parents are divorced, but we had tried doing like family therapy once
Mm.
back when I was like 10, and
Yeah.
that was a nightmare. That was a nightmare because, I mean, like this, it was something that was new to all of us, right?
Yeah.
And when we all walked out of there sobbing, we were like, fuck this, we're not doing this again, this is horrible. And being able to revisit that,
Through adult eyes.
through adult eyes, and yes, being fearful of it at first, not knowing what could happen,
Yeah.
but continuing to work on it anyways, despite any bumps or hiccups that might come up, and seeing the other side of it, being able to go back home and enjoy my time with my family and not be scared about being the one sober guy at the party, and
Yeah.
all of that. It's really great. It's really helped to develop my relationship with them.
Yeah.
So
Are you guys like besties now?
besties.
I
I love
think
my
you're a
friends.
mama's boy for some reason.
I am. I am.
And that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, I was raised by a whole sorority of women.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it was my relationship with my mom is very close.
Yeah.
Love my dad. Love my dad.
Yeah, it's just
But
different. I mean, I
yeah.
I even know that just from the relationship I have with my daughter
Yeah.
compared to my son.
Uh-huh.
My son is my baby boy.
Yeah.
My daughter, we're like so similar. It's almost like we fight a lot,
Right.
but it's
Yeah.
because we're so much alike. So it's totally different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So what is next steps looks for you? Well, we already determined you're going to be doing phase one now
Uh-huh.
of 75 hard in a couple weeks. We're going to let you
Mhm.
have a little more freedom here,
Yeah.
but then we're going to rein that back in. What are your thoughts on?
Next steps for me, I've started thinking about what my long-term goals are. And right now, it's finishing up my counseling certification, getting the KDAG 1 and 2, going back and finishing the job of the college work I wasn't able to finish, right? Because of my addiction, just finishing out my bachelor's and getting that done.
Yeah, well, and hopefully seeing Jordan on Friday night where he just finally graduated.
Oh yeah.
He went back to school when
Mhm.
he was 3 years in at Elevate, and
Mhm.
it's taken him 7 years now, but now he has his degree. And
Yeah.
he kept working the whole time, but he was like, this was an original goal of mine. I'm going to complete that.
And that's something I love about working here too, right? Is being able to be flexible with like your work goals and your life goals and being able to separate those, right? um like I love that I'm able to, part of my job is being able to work on myself, being that example, being able to go to the gym, take classes, um build my relationships, and that's part of, I think, what all of us do,
Yeah.
because working on yourself and being that example is one of the most important ways you can change another person's life, right?
Yeah. Well, and again, that comes back to the leading from the front,
Mm-hmm.
is people seeing you be the example. And then that gives them inspiration on what they could be. And
Exactly.
they start to see it for themselves because they see it in you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're all kind of like those little underdogs, I feel like, trying to prove something to this world, but really just doing all the right things. And then
Yeah.
other people are inspired by, oh shit, they're doing the right things and I see it working. I don't have to do all these other things to get to that point. I just got to do the right thing.
Right. And I never thought in a million years I would be an inspiration to people.
Aw.
I always looked up to so many people and was like, damn, if I could be like them one day, maybe I'm doing the right thing. And now that I am doing the right thing, and it's come full circle, being that pillar for other people is, I mean, man, I keep finding myself speechless in all the things that we're talking about, because it really is so jarring how much of a change you're able to make when you really put in the work,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, and it's super cool for you because of your age, like
Yeah.
getting it figured out at your age. I mean, we see the challenges. I mean, there's challenges at every age, but people in their 50s that are coming in
Mhm.
and they're looking at you with your life together
Mhm.
going, man, I wish I would have got my shit together at your age.
Yeah, and that's one of the beautiful things about sobriety, is that it's never too late,
Yeah.
right? I mean, one of my best friends in the program when I was in the program was, I think he was like a 65-year-old from like Colorado, and it's so weird how many worlds come together in this place and mesh so well. Just I mean,
yeah, you would never have been friends in the real world had you not been put in this situation together.
Exactly.
But that's kind of cool too, because then you start to learn and see things through different lenses.
Yes.
Like it's not just you and every 20-year-old how we see things. It's like from so many different perspectives, so many different drugs, so many different types of addiction, so much. You start to see things through other people's eyes, and you could put yourself in their shoes, and then you can really appreciate where you're at as well.
Yeah, no, perspective is a huge thing. I mean, especially in the environment where we work, right? Because oftentimes you get clients who are bickering about a small thing that's going on, like, oh, if I had this, then I could be successful, or if I did this, or if you guys did this, blah blah blah, right? And it's funny being someone that works here that was in the program and was like, damn, I remember when I said stuff like that, and now I'm here, and I was successful, right? Like, being able to understand where people are coming from, and kind of like I said, building that bridge so that they also understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
That's one of the more important things we do with our clients, being able to build that bridge and being able to overcome any troubles or adversities that come along the way, right? Because even in life after the program, there are going to be challenges, like you mentioned, right? And we can fucking do it. It's not, maybe it's hard sometimes, but you can fucking do it.
Yeah, life's hard. Well, and that's another thing we hear from the clients besides the community is like, I'm willing to listen to you guys because you've all been in my shoes. You didn't get this addiction degree from a book. It's all actually been here, done this, and overcome it. Therefore, that's like almost instant clout with the clients, which I think is so cool, because back in the day, we used to be looked at in a negative connotation because, oh, you just have a bunch of old addicts running a rehab. What do they know? And it's like, well, actually, they know more than the majority of people who are trying to do it these days based off of learning they got from a book, not from real life.
Yeah, I definitely don't think I would have been as successful as I've been able to be if it wasn't for that connection I was able to make with the staff members, right? If it was someone telling me, oh, you need to do this and then you can be successful, or you need to do that, right? Like I would have just stayed home and watched a fucking YouTube video,
Right.
But I mean, when you're able to connect with someone genuinely and you hear the words that they're saying, the words mean something to you, right? They're not just another video I watched on YouTube or just some quote you hear from Gandhi, right? Like it means something when it comes from someone you care about. So
I love that. Is it hard for you to receive validation?
Sometimes it is. One of the ways I deflect compliments is like, oh, Jayden, you look so good, or oh, Jayden, love your hair. I'll always respond with like a false confidence. I'll be like, I know. And I'm like, man, I should have just said thank you, but
it's so hard because that's what we all do. I'll brush it off. We see other staff like John Ragsack, and they'll instantly validate everybody else. Oh, no, it's because of blah, blah, blah. Like, it is so hard for all of us to just fucking take a compliment and a validation. Yeah.
And I think learning to love myself is definitely one thing that's helped with that. I used to just be like, oh no, you're lying to me, like shut up, I don't want to hear that right now. And now that it comes from kind of like a braggadocious kind of side, maybe it's growth. We'll eventually get to thank you, but but I'm glad I'm at least at braggadocious now.
Is that your word? Is that a Jayden word? Braggadocious?
Braggadocious. Yeah, I love not being humble about the growth I've made.
I'm gonna try that now. I'm gonna see how that lands with people I know. If I like tried the braggadocious,
like we know, Alex.
I'm gonna try that. Next time someone gives me a compliment, I'm gonna try the braggadocious, and I'll let you know how that goes.
Let's see.
I'm gonna try it on, see if it works for me, because I also struggle with just receiving validation. I just kind of brush off. Oh yeah, okay, thank you, but blah blah blah. I always preface it with a but or something else, and it's like it's genuinely when you can actually just receive it and feel it. It's almost along the same lines as gratitude,
Right.
where it like hits your heart. If you really let it, and you can produce that same effect, that oxytocin, that feel good chemical, if you let it.
Yes.
I think a lot of us are afraid to let it happen because we're afraid to lose it. So we're like, still guarded a bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I saw an interaction online. It was like someone was going through something terrible and they said, um, does it get better? Like they were asking the ether, does it get better? And someone commented, if you want it to. And I think that is so real, right? Because at the end of the day, it's you that's in your own way. You're building up the walls that aren't letting you accept the validation or aren't letting you believe that you can or that you have, right? And if you want it to, it can't get better, right? That's the end of that.
Perfect. And I think that's the perfect place to end it. That soundbite right there is absolutely perfect.
Thanks.
Yeah. So, Jade, thank you so much for coming on the show today, for talking with me, for having fun with me.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. You're a super easy conversation. I mean, that's the coolest thing, too, about all us Elevate people. It's like we've known each other 1,000 years.
Yeah.
There's no build up, there's no whatever. It's just easy. It's comfortable. It doesn't matter what position within the organization we hold, whether it's me at the top or a client, in detox. We all have this odd, like, camaraderie that makes it just very simple and easy.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you having me here because, I mean, this is the first time I've ever done anything like this, like be on a podcast or talk in front of a camera, right? And trying out that new experience and having such a great time like we did, I really appreciate that, Angie.
Well, don't think you have a great radio voice and you need to go like leave it. No, I'm kidding. No.
We know, I know.
Just have a great radio voice. Okay, you're right. Braggadocious. Enjoy it. Well, and it was very, very easy, and you're very well spoken. I mean, there's parts of you where I'm like, God, this guy's like a mini Tots. Although it's funny because you're obviously like way taller than Tots, so you're not like a mini Tots. You're like a taller Tots. But I hear a lot of that same like knowledge and insight. It's really inspirational to hear you speak and talk about everything.
Thank you. There it is. There it is.
Awesome. Right on, dude. Well, thank you. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Angie.